good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Sir Meerkats, and welcome back to the Motor Meerkat channel. So for today's video, I thought I would share a particularly interesting story in the history of motorsport sort of circuit building. Now, of course, every country would love to have an FIA Grade 1 status motor racing track because it allows for the top tier of motorsport events to occur in that country, such as Formula 1 and MotoGP. And this was exactly the idea proposed by Michael Carrick in 2011. No, not the ex-Manchester United footballer, this bloke, actually. He wanted to bring world-class motorsport entertainment to South Wales. Obviously, something I'd back hugely considering I go to Cardiff Uni. And this project even had backing from the Welsh government, but what went wrong? How did such a huge idea firstly make it off the ground, and secondly completely fail at everything that it wanted to be? And that is what I will be delving into in today's video on the failed history of the Circuit of Wales. I hope you enjoy. The Circuit of Wales has been subject to huge levels of controversy ever since its inception, and it's considered basically the world's longest and slowest corporate death. The plans for the circuit were announced in 2011, and the site that they would hope to build the track on spanned 830 acres of public land in a little Welsh town called Ebervale. Now, apologies if I do pronounce any of the Welsh sort of town names and words wrong. Being at Cardiff Uni has hopefully allowed me to get a little bit better with that sort of stuff, much better than my Irish pronunciation and stuff in the That Time When video. That was abysmal. But yeah, Ebervale is a rundown area of Wales, around 45-minute drive from the capital city of Cardiff, as I mentioned. Now, the area fell into disrepair after the decline of the coal mining and steelworks industries, and this left high levels of unemployment that continue to ravage the area to this day. So the opportunity of having a Grade 1 motor racing circuit right on their doorstep would have been incredible for the rejuvenation of Ebervale and the surrounding areas, and it would have built sort of a tourist hub for motor racing fans. Now, the company that were hoping to make this huge idea a reality were the Heads of the Valleys Development Company. Now, this was headed by Michael Carrick, the bloke that I mentioned earlier, and from the outset of the idea there was obviously highly vocal opposition from countryside, wildlife and environmental groups. The environmental body of National Resources Wales had initially raised fears about the visual impact of the circuit and had asked ministers to advise them on whether the scheme would be called in for further investigations. However, by August of 2013, the organisation said its concerns had been lifted following talks with the Heads of the Valleys Development Company. That sounds a little bit fishy to me. The Heads of the Valleys claimed that the circuit would be worth £45 million a year annually to the Welsh economy, generating 6,000 permanent jobs through the provision of facilities for the motorsport. And in addition to this, the on-site hotel, race academy and training facilities would also boost employment opportunities further and help to attract up to 750,000 visitors a year. By July of 2013, the circuit had received outline planning permission from the Blaenau Gwent County Borough Council, and the Welsh Government had put £9 million of taxpayer money into the scheme. This was obviously because, as I said earlier, it promised to be such a highly regenerative scheme to the rundown part of Wales that is Ebervale, and Carrick claimed to have put £3.5 million of his own money into the project as well. A public relations push by Carrick's organisation in 2014 saw representatives visiting schools in and around Ebervale to enlighten students as to the positives of the scheme, and they promised to these kids that the circuit would be hosting MotoGP, and they even said, to quote one of them, "By September 2015 we could have our first races taking place just up the road from here." And this obviously did not happen. The Heads of the Valleys, obviously owners of Circuit of Wales, paid millions of pounds to a Spanish company called Dorna for the right to host the UK round of the MotoGP. Developers said that they signed a 5-year deal with the MotoGP organisers, Dorna, to host the British Grand Prix from 2015 onwards, taking over the event from Silverstone. But several setbacks in achieving full planning permission meant a predicted December 2013 construction date came and went, and it became clear that the Heads of the Valleys Development Company was going to be in an embarrassing position where they had the contract to host the Grand Prix, but no circuit for them to race on. The main reason that Carrick put forward as to why the circuit was taking such a while to actually get underway and start being built was the fact that it was wanting to be built on public land. Now, if you're an adult out there and you have dealt with planning permission before, you're going to know how difficult it is to achieve that planning permission, even on your own private land, let alone on public land. Because obviously, public land is supposed to be owned by everyone, and not everyone is going to want a massive racetrack being built on their doorstep. And in the meantime, an agreement was finally struck for Donington Park to host the 2015 MotoGP UK round, but this deal collapsed in January of 2015 amid claims that Donington were not being paid by Circuit of Wales to do so. And a new deal was subsequently struck up with Silverstone for 2 years while the Circuit of Wales was supposed to be constructed. And David Davis, an MP that's chair of the Welsh Affairs Select Committee, not too sure what he does, he was asked by Carrick to promote the circuit himself, and obviously Carrick had asked a lot more prominent people to put good words in to the media and to the public about the circuit, obviously in a hope to increase the public awareness of the track and the public opinion on the track to be in a more positive light that will hopefully speed up the process for Carrick to get more money to then eventually build the circuit. During the previously mentioned time of all of these setbacks between 2014 and 2016, the estimated cost of the track rose from 350 million to 420 million. Michael Carrick blazing! Despite this, Carrick managed to convince the Welsh Government to award the Heads of the Valleys company a £2 million development grant and also underwrite a £7.35 million bank loan, which basically means that if everything fails, the Welsh Government are going to pay that bank loan off. And it was later revealed that the Welsh Government did all of this whilst knowing that the company didn't at the time currently have any properly backed investors. So that was absolutely moronic from the Welsh Government there. Now, during the start of development, Carrick had put Aventa Capital Partners in charge of finding investors for the scheme, and Aventa had charged Heads of the Valleys nearly £1 million in their efforts to find backers to push the project over the line, which, to be fair, all seems pretty fair, like they need to be charged for the job that they do, until you realise that Carrick owned both Heads of the Valleys and Aventa, meaning that he had used a lot of taxpayers' money to pay a company that he also owned. So effectively, he was paying himself. But of course, Carrick claims that Aventa did extensive work that was worthy of such a large payout. And then furthering the Welsh Government's embarrassment, their officials admitted that they had not checked whether Aventa Capital Partners got the job with Heads of the Valleys after a competitive tendering process, or knew exactly what services they had been hired to provide. Oh my god. And could it get worse for the Welsh Government? Yes, it could. A Welsh Government press release denied that Heads of the Valleys used £300,000 from the £2 million property development grant to help pay for FTR Moto, a motorcycle firm based in Buckinghamshire that builds frames for Moto 2 that Carrick had bought. And even though they did deny it, a committee later found paperwork confirming that the officials knew all about the purchase and actually approved it. Furthering on with Carrick's very, very slimy behaviour, it emerged in 2016 that he had had £35,000 worth of garden work done on his house in Cambridgeshire. And to be fair, like, man's got to make his garden nicer, like that's totally fine, but he charged it through the Heads of the Valleys company that was obviously partly government funded to do his bloody garden. Piss off, mate. A whistleblower that was in the garden company that had obviously got the invoice and was like, what is that? Had sent this invoice to the Conservative MP, David Davis, but Carrick obviously claims, oh, it was just a booking mistake, it was supposed to go through my other company. But yeah, I am clowning on Carrick a lot, he is a bit of a melt, but to be fair to him, it was revealed in 2016 that the insurance giant Aviva was prepared to back the scheme of the Circuit of Wales on the condition that the Welsh Government was prepared to underwrite the whole deal. So that would mean the Welsh Government putting a lot of money in potential jeopardy. And Carrick had also made it seem to lots of investors and employees of him at the time as though 100% underwrite from the government was already practically guaranteed, but the Minister of the government at the time made it clear that that was definitely not the case. They were not going to be underwriting any deals, let alone a 100% underwrite, so obviously Aviva and any other guys that he got on board dropped out. And the same MP, David Davis, claimed that in a meeting with Carrick had told him that BMW were very interested for when the circuit was built to build a BMW World, like an amusement park in Ebbw Vale. Now those rumours have never been confirmed or denied, but I'm pretty highly sceptical to such a huge endeavour. And in addition, Carrick also claimed that BT were very interested in building an innovation centre on the site. But BBC, when they were investigating Carrick, called up BT and asked them, is that true? And BT said, no. Well, as we know, it's now 2020, 9 years since the project was first announced, and that field in Ebbw Vale is still a field. The BBC claims that the amount owed to companies that have worked on the project without yet being paid amounts to £23 million, and this is because these companies were working on an at-risk basis, which basically means that they'd be paid on completion of the project. Now obviously the project hasn't been completed, so they haven't been paid, but guess what? Aventa, Carrick's company, were not paid on this basis. They were paid up front, so good for them. So there was a Senate hearing that Carrick had to attend where he would settle sort of the debate over construction and funding and what exactly was going on. And he brought with him representatives from a merchant bank called Climewood Benson, who were instructed to find £100 million worth of investment that the heads of the valleys still needed to finish the project. But why is this other company being brought in to find investment when Aventa was supposed to be the ones finding investment? And in July of 2017, when obviously that investment was not found, the Welsh Government were approached to provide an additional £210 million worth of taxpayer-funded guarantees towards the construction. But luckily for Wales as a whole, they declined, thank God. And due to the Welsh Government declining to put that money forward, Dorna, who obviously run what events MotoGP goes to, officially ended their relationship with the project. And that meant that the license to hold MotoGP obviously carried on at Silverstone, as it still does to this day. Now after this whole debacle finally ended, a Welsh Government spokesman said, "We have already recognised there are lessons to be learnt from elements of the Welsh Government's handling of this project and have put in place new processes to address some of those issues in future." Sounds a little bit wishy-washy to me, doesn't it? That's a proper public statement. Yeah, cheers to that Welsh Government, thank you very much. Wasted our money, cheers! In February 2018, the heads of the Valleys Development Company entered a voluntary agreement with its creditors to whom it owed £24 million in an attempt to stop its liquidation process. And the company's endeavours, projects, all of that stuff was sold on to other companies or just completely destroyed. But there we have it. That is the frankly insane story of the failed Circuit of Wales. Now I would have absolutely loved for this circuit to be built. I can't lie, it would have been brilliant for me. Only a 45-minute drive from my house in Cardiff, so it would have been amazing just to get up one day, drive 45 minutes up the road and see bloody MotoGP. That would have been immense. But realistically, looking at it even from the start, the plan was never going to happen. The Welsh Government got completely sucked up into Michael Carrick's lies and deceptions, which obviously they were very stupid in doing, but equally it was quite difficult for them to ignore the extreme positives that would have come from such a project, especially for Ebbw Vale area and all the surrounding places. The regeneration that it would have caused would have been absolutely fantastic for all of those people. But it ended up just being a massive pipeline taking money out of the government's pocket and obviously taking our money, taking taxpayers' money and giving that to a con man that has nothing to show for it today. And hopefully they really have learned their lesson and Carrick is never allowed to host a project again. Please. But as I said, that is all for today's video. If you did enjoy this little history video, then be sure to drop a like on it down below. And while you're down there, why not hit that red subscribe button too? Because I make motorsport content every Tuesday and every Friday that you're not going to want to miss. Thank you so much for watching another video on the Moto Meerkat YouTube channel. I really appreciate you guys showing me all this support recently. Absolutely loving it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and I'll see all of you Meerkats later. Goodbye guys.